welcome everybody to Transatlantic Watch Party. We are a TikTok live / podcast that chats about TV and what TV we are watching. And Dan is in Canada and I am in the UK, hence the title. And I am Cara. And today we are going to be discussing the season finale and forever finale of Pan Am, which was episode number 14, titled 1964. So, yeah, it felt, I spent the entire, afterwards I did a bit of research because I'm desperate to find out whether they knew they were doing a finale or not. Because it definitely has season finale, but there's other stuff to come vibes.
Yeah. I think based on what my feeling of this episode, a lot of stuff felt rushed. Some stuff felt rushed. Some stuff felt like we want to tie these loose ends up. What I in my research, what I saw, and you probably saw the same thing, is that they had an order for one more episode after Christmas. They did the first 13 episodes, and there was an order for one more to shoot, and that was this last one that they shot, and that was I think it was an attempt to kind of hopefully shop it around. If they didn't get picked up at ABC, maybe it would get picked up at another network, because that had happened recently or something like that. And so they were trying to, they did wrap up a few things, but they still left a few things open to try and get it picked up, maybe by Netflix or something like that. I think they were hoping for that, but nobody went for that.
Yeah,
so we got this.
That is what that's something I didn't find in looking it up. I just couldn't find any sort of definitive answer to that question, and it really annoyed me. So that's a good answer. Thanks for that. So let's dive into the episode, and then after it, we can talk about what happened with the show. So first of all, they had a recap, and they conflated two things with each other, which one cut right into the other, and it was, you're a prince, you're a smuggler. I just thought that was a really nice edit.
That was good. Yeah. And yeah, it was overall, we're right back, again, after this weird departure in episode 13. Now we're back in the middle of where we were a month after JFK's assassination. That's what we determined. It's been a month since. It's around Christmas time. It's around New Year's Eve, right? Because this happens yeah. So this is end of December. So it's about a month later after the JFK assassination, right?
Yes. And we open with the most adorable thing, which is Prince Omar has bought out first class, and he is serving Colette. She's sitting down and he's and serving her coffee, and it's so cute.
It's nice to know that these, they can get a specific plane like that. If he wants to. He obviously wants that plane that she is assigned to so he can do this. So they would have had to, go to Pan Am and say, we want to book this specific plane for a private.
Well, maybe he just got the CIA to do it. They seem to be able to get them put on specific routes whenever they like. So, and there was a really adorable moment where Colette comes through to the rest of the girls, and she's like, I feel like I'm floating on air. And Maggie goes, we all are. We're at 30,000 feet. Oh! Maggie, how bitter are you? She's not having a good time, Maggie.
No. But she is having a good time later on.
Well, yes, she's having a great time later on. But I think they were trying to drive the storyline for Maggie that she is getting to the end of her career because she can only stay on until she's 32.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And that's what, and so she's trying to sort of reconcile with, where do I go from here? Because even the smuggling thing, she can't do it once she's not with Pan Am anymore.
Oh, that's right.
So, I think that they're trying to sort of get into Maggie's head of she's sort of thinking about, where is my life going and what do I do now?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I wasn't even thinking about that. But yeah, now that the congressman is no longer an option, she's got to figure out where else we can go.
Because just to skip right to the end, something I noticed about the absolute final still that they had of them all on the balcony at New Year's Eve was they all looked relatively happy, and Maggie was sort of looking concernedly into the future, and I wondered if that was planned or whether they just caught Christina Ricci at an awkward moment.
Could be. I don't know. Could be either one. We'll never know because the show didn't get to continue, so we'll never know where that character went, but we can speculate.
So annoying.
Okay. So what is it? What's next?
Oh yeah, so I wrote down Sanjeev's back because I was pleased to see him back as navigator.
And he had a good line, though. I didn't write it down. He had a great line that made me laugh, and I forgot to write it down.
Oh, well, all I liked was when the guys were talking about, you know, what Jackie Kennedy had said, and like, for a time, this was Camelot, and he's like, excuse me, I have to go jump out of this plane now.
That's right. Yeah, it was good to have him back for that last episode.
Yeah, and then Ted gets chatting with Dean because Ted is obviously having major doubts about this wedding that he has continued to go along with. I didn't know what decision he was going to have made about that, but they're obviously planning a wedding. This is going to happen, him and Amanda, this lavender wedding, and they're talking about that, and I think Colette or something. But so Ted's like, well, nobody's perfect, right? And Dean said, for me, Colette comes close. So of course I wrote down, close! How dare you?
Yeah, and so, but and then he tells Dean, right? He tells Dean basically that Amanda gives him permission to, you know, not about Amanda's like sexuality or anything like that, but he just tells her that basically gives me permission to do whatever. And I don't, Dean doesn't seem too impressed by that.
No, and he just says that Amanda is a modern woman.
Yeah, he doesn't allow them further. But the opening part of the show is a lot of Ted trying to have this conversation with a few people, even with his dad, right? He has a conversation with his dad shortly after that. Catches his dad coming, or he pulls him out of a meeting, and his dad's all upset about it. And he wants to talk about something.
Well, yes, I'm not sure if he pulls him out of a meeting the first time, but when we get the denouement of what's happening with the wedding, that's when he pulls him out of a meeting. That's even worse.
He was just on his way out to lunch. He was on his way out the door or something, right? Yes, of course.
Yeah. But also, we get the information that Maggie is smuggling on that plane. She's got rubies or something, and she's like, jewelry's different. You know, this isn't cigarettes. This is different. And
smuggling stuff into the U.S., not stuff out of the U.S. Right now, it's not just smuggling cigarettes to Russia. This is actual like crime. It's crime that counts.
This is big time crime. And he says something about, you've got to think about your future. And she says, my future died last month in Dallas. And I thought, as kind of Maggie's only reference to it, I thought that was a great line. Because she loved Jack Kennedy.
Yeah. And she's probably like totally like just doesn't care about anything. It's probably why she went along with the smuggling. Because I didn't think she was going to. Didn't it seem at the end of the last episode that talked about this that she wasn't going to do it, and then Dean shows up and punched out Broyles, so that kind of ended that conversation, and I didn't think she was going to continue to go along with it, but we come in and she is working with him now, right? So that was
you're right that she might have, you know, the assassination happened and she might have been like, well, what's the point of anything? No, that was the one thing she really believed in. I wrote down later, and I think this is what I'm going to call her, no morals Maggie, because she talks good morals, but she doesn't seem to actually have any. You know? I think you might be right that might have like really pushed her over the edge.
Like I said, it felt rushed. Like it felt like they could have worked that out over a couple of episodes or something, right? Like. I thought it was odd that there was only 14, because a show like this probably would have had more in its first season, but it does seem like as though this was intended as the season finale, right?
Yeah.
But if they had like, I guess, better ratings, they would have had a more clear direction and they would have been able to do more episodes or something. But yeah again, she's working with Broyles. I love where that one went. But we're gonna go through. Let's go through this the episode. What was the next scene after that?
And the next scene was them sort of in the airport, you know, in the behind the scenes bit of the airport. And we find out that Dean has been grounded.
Right.
And they don't say why, because they do say Haiti was a long time ago, but I still wasn't absolutely sure whether it was related to Haiti or not. And then Dean says, oh, I've got a pretty good idea why. Now, because the episodes were shown out of order, what an uneducated person might assume is that he's talking about that VP and Ginny situation.
That's immediately what I thought about. Yeah, because I just seen it, right? So
then he looks to the side and he's looking at Broyles, and you're like, oh yeah, because in the episode before that he punched Broyles in the face. Yeah. So it's probably him. And then skipping ahead. It's not. It's that the family of the dead guy whose body they left behind have, are suing them or something. So yeah, but I just thought that was such a funny situation because of how they'd messed the episodes around.
Yeah, that's true. Very confusing. And so Dean's got to go in for some kind of an inquest or some kind of a what do you call it? Inquisition? I don't know. It's like a
yeah.
Period.
It's a Pan
hearing.
Am Inquisition. Nobody expects a Pan Am Inquisition. Yeah, no, I can't remember what it's called either. Like a board, like an inquiry.
Got to go out of his
yes.
boss and explain what happened. He does feel kind of like he shouldn't have to because he feels like it was just
It was ages
his
ago.
job.
Yeah. You'd have expected it to come up earlier, and I understand that. It's been a while. And then we get the little conversation between Broyles and Maggie, and Maggie's like, I want to come and do the deal, and he says, these guys won't want to make a deal with the woman in the room. And I went, ugh.
Wrong answer for Maggie. She's not going to accept that. I like Maggie. Like, she's really forced. Like, she's putting her foot down. She's hanging on to the jewels. Broyle's not going to get those jewels. Like, she obviously doesn't trust him, right? And rightly so. And so he keeps trying to get those jewels, and she's like, no, I'll come. And
because he's like, we'll sell them, and then you'll get your cut. And she obviously thinks he's going to rip her off.
Yep.
Which I would also assume.
Right.
Again, we're in the similar situation that Kate is in with the spies. Like, you're working with people who are untrustworthy. So don't trust them. So you have to be on top of everything. You can't work with criminals and then not expect them to not be criminals with you. It's just seems...
And as it turns out, it's a good thing she comes along. But speaking of Kate, she gets a visit from Richard for the first time in this series. And I'm surprised it took 14 episodes for us to get him showing up at her apartment door with a gunshot wound to his stomach or wherever he got shot. But that's where it is. Like, he shows up, he's shot. He can't go to the hospital. They're watching the hospital. He was sneaking some microfilm out somewhere, and they shot him, and now they're coming after him, and he's hiding out in her apartment.
Yeah.
Right?
Now, what's funny was I don't know if it's the microfilm that she took from that guy in Rome. That really funny pickpocketing situation, or whether it's different, because then they start talking about that list, and I was like, this isn't the list though, is it? And he turns up.
A lot of microfilm going around. That was the medium of choice in the 60s, was microfilm. By the way, it didn't look like it was that micro. It looked like normal film when they took it out, and like that's pretty normal looking film to me. But maybe it's because it was the 60s. That was microfilm, and then by the time it was a normal size when you were anyway. It was weird.
Yeah, but you have skipped a scene.
Sorry,
you skipped the first Ted dad moment.
Oh yes, of course.
Which is where Ted goes to his dad for advice. Why? I don't know.
Well, maybe he's looking for his dad to give him out. Like, his dad probably, he figures maybe his dad's got some kind of business philosophy about it. Going, whatever, no big deal. We'll get another one. But no, his dad's all into it. His dad loves this idea of him getting married. The governor's gonna marry them. Like, that's a big deal. This is the social event of the season. The dad is thrilled about all this stuff, right? And it's making him look so good.
Yep, and it's so Ted. It just gets worse and worse for Ted, and his dad gives him some cracking advice, which is, some of the best marriages are not about love. Oh, Dad. So basically what you said there, Dad, is that you don't love Ted's mom. So that's nice. That's nice for Ted to find out, although he probably knew. But,
yeah, that's right.
Ted
was not thinking about that at that time.
Yeah. And then we get the Richard, and he tells Kate that there is a double agent. He says, no one knows I am missing. So if anyone asks you about me, they're the double agent. And I was like, if you work in an office, when she calls him, he's in an office. If he doesn't turn up for work the next day, anyone could ask about him. Like, I was just going, you work for the CIA and no one's gonna know you're missing.
Mm-hmm.
That seems like this was a badly organized plan then.
Yeah, I think they needed an easy way to identify the double agent right away, because we know the first person that asks about him, we know who it is, right? So that's just for us.
And it's one of these brilliant things where you're like, wait a second, we've got 2 spies in this show, and one of them says that someone is a double agent. I wonder who that's gonna be.
Yeah, I wasn't surprised when it was revealed who it was at all.
I thought we were going to find out that Anderson was American and he was going to slip back into his American accent, and you were going to be like, yeah!
That would have been funny, for sure.
Yeah.
Nope.
And then we get that incredible scene where Colette goes to wherever Omar is, their pad in their pied-à-terre in New York or whatever he has, and he's like got just a table full of food. And she's like, this isn't all for us. And he goes, yes, I am going to find out what your favourite food is. And she's like, I could just tell you. And he goes, oh, and I flew in this, you're the chef from your favourite restaurant in Paris. And she's like, I don't know.
And she's like, it's too much. And then he says, okay, fine, let's go for pizza in Brooklyn. He's ready to walk away from all of it. Like, this guy's just crazy. Just so
I love him. But so they sit down, and then he tells her that he wants to officially court her, which means she has to move to. Now, is it Iran?
I think it's a made-up city. I think it's supposed to be something like that. I think it's a made-up place. I don't think that's a real place.
Yeah, because I put it on the subtitles, and I was like, is this how the French say Iran? Like, I don't know what she's saying.
No.
And she says, and he goes, yeah, and then we have to do like a background check, and you have to be there for 6 months, and you'll have a clothing allowance, and a blah, 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 blah. And she says, there are rules? And yes, he's a prince. Of course there are rules. What's wrong with you?
It's not really Colette, is it, to be having to go by rules in a romantic relationship, right? She's not really all about that, so I can see why she'd be reluctant. But she goes for it, right? She still goes ahead with it. It's kind of interesting.
Yes, she does. She does. And then we cut to Ted and Laura. A really sweet scene with Ted and Laura, where Ted is Laura. Because I can't remember why. Oh, Ted's got her a new camera.
Yeah.
And he says, and she's horrified. She's like, it's too expensive. And he says, oh, well, I got Pan Am to pay for it because I had told them what happened in Russia. And she shows him the photos that she took of him. And there's a lovely bit where she goes, this one's Andy Warhol's favourite. So she did meet Andy Warhol, and she's shown him her photos, and it's all very exciting for Laura. I'm very pleased for her. Mm-hmm. And then they get a little moment where he wants to kiss her, and she was definitely looking at his lips. So she absolutely wanted in on that kiss, but she's sensible, and he's marrying someone else, and so she backs off, and they don't kiss. And, you know, she's very respectful. Very sweet, Laura.
Would you expect anything?
And then we get a Dean Colette conversation. Oh, he's waiting on the steps of her brownstone.
Right. He just shows up there.
Yeah, because he wants to like fight for her or something. Ted's like, aren't you going to fight for her? Like, it's a prince, dude. I don't think you're going to win. And also, he's lovely, Omar. You know, he's treated her a lot better than Dean ever did. And so they turn up and he says something, and she says, love is not something I care to discuss with you. And I was like, oh, burn. Oh, well done.
Yeah, that's right. She's not, she's had it. That was fast. I mean, it's been a month since the last time we saw them. But yeah, she's done with him. Like, it's...
Yeah, she is over it. You treated her wrong. She's moved on. And so many of these scenes are like you say about it being rushed. I didn't really feel that, but now that we're talking about it, I'm like, there's nothing happening. There's nothing really.
It's just conclusions to some of these things, right? We're kind of tying up these loose ends and also leaving some untied for possible future storylines. Especially at the end there. I thought at the end there was a couple of things they did not address deliberately that they should have.
Yeah, there was a big one. There was a very big one.
Head to the Laura side for a moment. Anyway.
And then, so then we get Anderson, we get Kate, because Richard tells Kate that she needs to take the microfilm into the CIA And they sew the microfilm into like the lining of her coat. And she crosses the street, and oh, what a surprise is there! It's the other spy, who immediately makes himself sound like the double agent because he's looking for Richard.
Yeah.
And I was just like, at this point, I was like, is this a test?
Well,
Because they've always sort of like tested her, you know, and everything's always felt like kind of like a game, you know, like they're like that. Well, like she's a mouse and they're playing with their food. Do you know what I mean? They're like they're cats and they're batting her about before they eat her.
Right? They've been manipulative, very much so. Yeah. I wasn't thinking that. Like immediately go, oh, I just kind of went with, oh, he's the thing. Like I thought what we're supposed to think, that he is the mole or whatever you want to call him, and he's also looking for the microfilm. But what I don't understand after that scene is that she immediately turns around and goes back to her house. Why doesn't she just keep going to the CIA or go walk for what? Well, I'll make sure he's not following her, and then go where she's supposed to go. She immediately just turns around and goes back to the apartment.
Yeah.
Right?
And I don't know if she like went to a shop and made it look to like if he was following her, that she was getting something and then taking it home. Like,
yeah.
Like I don't know what she did, because it does look like she literally just went, all right, bye, Anderson, and just crossed back over the road.
Yeah.
That would have been incredibly suspicious.
Yeah, I couldn't make it down to the thing she says, and I thought that was weird. Then he's not there. Richard's not there, which is also suspicious, right? That makes her really going, "What the hell's going on? Why is he's got a gunshot wound still?"
Yeah. Right? And I was like, this was the point where I was like, wait, so is Richard the double agent? Because I never know if I'm being double bluffed or not when it comes to these things. So you know, and she obviously also thought that as well. You know, she was like, she didn't know who to trust.
That's Anderson told her that, right? Anderson that said that he is suspected to be Richard suspected to be about something. So classic spycraft, as they say. They use the word. You know what, the word spycraft, I've heard it a couple times this week because I'm also watching Slow Horses on Apple TV Plus.
Oh, I want to see that. I haven't watched that yet.
They use the word that a little bit, spycraft. So yeah, it's bad spycraft.
I wrote that line down. It comes later, but it said, classic spycraft, accuse your accuser. And I was like, oh, spies, you're so clever. No one else has ever done that.
That's right, yeah.
People do that. That's how politics works.
Everybody does that.
You're not special. So we get the Anderson thing. Then we get Ted going to Amanda, and in order to break up with her. Mm-hmm. And I went through so many emotions in this very short scene because I really feel for Amanda. And you have said you will do this for her. You have taken a load off, like that she has been dealing with all of her life. And she needs you. But then she kind of gets the impression that he's going to end it. And so she's like, come upstairs. And I'm like, no, you don't have to do this. Stop sleeping with him. Like, it's horrible. Don't do that to yourself. And then I just wrote, poor girl. Like, it was just an emotional roller coaster, that scene. Because he did break it off with her.
Yeah. But I think he was good. That was good for him for sticking to it and not giving in. And he said, nope, and just walks away. Yeah. He does. Right.
And it's absolutely fair for him to do that. For him to go, do you know what? This isn't right for me. But she thought she'd found someone who was going to do this for her, and I just feel so bad for the situation that she was in. And then we get Laura and Ted, because Amanda goes to Laura, and it turns out that Laura and Ted want the same thing, because Amanda's like, you can have him. I'm asking you to be his mistress. And she's like, I don't want to be his mistress. I want a husband. I don't want to share him. I don't want to, And so she and Ted are on exactly the same page. Their lines are almost identical, about what they want.
Yeah.
So I thought that was nice.
It was nice. Again, it felt like they were rushing those characters to get to that point. I mean, they've done a good job of Ted and Laura becoming friends. I think that's ultimately what he likes about her, is that he actually took the time to get to know someone, know a woman better it's more than just someone to have sex with. It's somebody you can actually talk to and be friends with. And so because he's friends with her first, that allowed these feelings to develop. And so I still buy it, but I just feel like, again, we could have taken a little more time to get there. It's like, no, I don't like my wife. I'm going to be with you. It's like they have to be with somebody. They're all like pairing off now. Is this what we have to do? So it was.
I feel like, because of what happens at the end of the episode, I feel because I always feel like Ted and Laura were going to be the big will they won't they of the series.
Yeah, that's right. It would have gone for a couple seasons.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like this was all very rushed because now we know they will.
Yeah.
There might be an obstacle to it, but we know they both want to, you know. And it's sort of, it takes away. I genuinely thought that was going to go on for like 2 or 3. It would have gone on for 2 or 3 seasons.
I think so too. Yeah. And it would have been good. It would have been really good. Like, those 2 actors are excellent. You know, they're my favorite actors in this show. I think those 2 were really, really good. And the characters are great. And that's what I'm going to miss the most about the show. I think of Ted and Laura, not the couple, but just each of them individually. You know?
Yeah. And as you know, I'm not a big fan of Ted, but I think his journey, his character growth has been really, really nice to watch. And I think the actress is really good. Yeah. And I think that relationship, it makes you warm to him. But I love the fact that he hasn't grown out of being an idiot. You know, he's still Ted. He's still like, every third line he says, I'm like, oh, Ted! But the way those 2 have like come together as friends, I think was really, really lovely. And then we get the big reveal for Colette.
Oh yeah, and I was very confused about this because her background check has turned up that her parents were Jewish, basically, is what the big secret is, and that the nuns the nuns who took her after during the war, took care of her and raised her, changed her name so that the Nazis couldn't find her. I guess she was hiding. She's like a little Anne Frank, another little Anne Frank.
Because it was some friends of her parents that took her to the orphanage, and so I don't know if the nuns even knew about it or whether they lied. The friends who came along and said this is her name. But it was funny because when we watched the episode, that the one in Berlin, the brilliant Colette episode, the episode that made me just go, oh my God, this woman is incredible. My assumption was that she was Jewish before we got the French resistance story, because and now I'm like, oh, if she went back to Germany now, she'd be even angrier. And I think there's yes, because this is actually the interview that she's having. So this isn't the reveal yet. The reveal comes with Omar later. So sorry, I've skipped ahead. Because she says something to the guys who were interviewing her. She stayed there she stayed in the town until she was 23. Mm-hmm. And she says, yes, it was a long time. And she says, but they always told me, if you are lost, stay where you are. We will find you. And so she was so desperate for her parents to turn out not to be dead and that they would come and find her.
Yeah.
Oh, it's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Poor Colette. Yeah. Oh, and then we get the really good scene with Maggie and Broyles trying to sell these jewels.
Yes, to some Portuguese men.
Yes.
This is good because Maggie Hopper speaks Portuguese.
Yeah, because I was like, what language are they speaking? And then I was like, oh, wait a second. But yes, it was something that Broyles says something about, because she won't leave. The men are like, you should go. And she's like, no, I'll stay here. And Broyles is like, oh, women, they get so emotional, and like puts his hand on her leg and stuff. And he's like laughing, he's having a great time. And she's like, wants to punch him in the face. And then, because she learned Portuguese, because she realised that her whole life was a lie and she wanted one of the things on her CV to be true, she made the effort to learn Portuguese, and she understood that these guys were going to rip them off.
Mm-hmm.
Brilliant! Absolutely brilliant.
Awesome. She's like, nope, deal's off. Boom. And out. And Bro's like, what the hell's going on? She's like, they're going to rip us off. So and then 2 seconds later, these guys show up with guns, and they're going to like go into the room to just take the jewels. So that was great. Yeah. Good job, Maggie.
Yeah. So that was really fun. That payoff of her making the effort to fully learn Portuguese, that would help her out here. Brilliant. Then we get the classic spycraft line. And so we're still sort of left not really knowing who Kate trusts, because also he didn't even give her the microfilm, did he? He just gave her the canister.
That's right. Yeah, after she goes back to the apartment, we learn that like she opens it up and there's nothing in there, and she was just a decoy. And he went and followed her to see if Anderson would approach her, and he didn't. So he knew all that was going to happen. He was using her as a decoy, right?
Yeah. Which I think we can all say is classic spycraft.
I mean, it's only like the 10th time she's been used as a decoy in the series, so whatever. It's like she should be used to it by now.
Yeah. You can't trust any of them. No. And then we had a scene with Laura and Ted, and all I've written down is Laura and Ted, so I assume that's the scene in which they kissed.
Yeah, and they finally like confessed their love, and it was nice. It was a good scene. Again, I think it would have been more meaningful had we spent more time getting there. But it was a good, like, in the moment scene of him finally realizing that he was in love with her all along, I guess, or he finally fell.
Well, he says he fell in love with her when she was holding that antenna for him.
Right. And yeah, but it was like he goes through some moments, right? And watching Kate speak and all these things. And so that was nice. I thought it was good.
Yeah, it was very sweet. And I think he thinks she doesn't feel the same way.
Oh. Well, she kissed him.
Because Sorry?
She kissed him.
I know, but he says something. And she goes, "Do you?"
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, he doesn't know if what she means by that. And she's like, "Do you love me?" That's what she means. But yeah, like they're both not really sure. And then when she realizes that is exactly what he's saying, that he loves her, then yes, she goes in for a good old smooch. Which would have been really good if it had come in season 3.
Whatever. And at least we got it.
Then we get what I found to be the weirdest moment in the whole series. And you might not have noticed it, but for me, very weird. Because every time we pull up, we get to the airport, they have that horrible CGI.
Yeah.
Before we move into the Pan Am Inquisition in the boardroom, we get that shot of the New York street looking up to the Pan Am building.
Yes.
And I think that is a genuine, from the 60s, bit of footage.
Oh, okay.
And I rewound it and looked at it again, and it was like fuzzy and like, it looked like it was genuinely, and I wrote down, why are you authentic all of a sudden? Like, nothing about this show has been, but genuinely, they just had that one insert, and I was like, this ruins everything.
Well, especially I thought you were going to talk about, like, there's a really bad CGI shot of the airport at some point in this episode too. Like, you can see all the over the airport. Yeah. So, but this one, I mean, and it's not like that building still exists, or at least it did when this series was shot, and they just have to like put Pan Am on the building to make it look real.
They've done that before.
Yeah.
So I was just like, why all of a sudden have you decided to use this one bit of what looks like
the last episode? They wanted to get an actual piece of footage in there. I don't know.
Yeah, it's such a strange decision. It took me out of the whole thing because it was so surprising to see like a real shot. Very strange. Yes. So do we get the begin? No, actually, yeah, I don't know, because did we have even a scene with that? Like a short bit with Dean in the.
We had Dean.
Have a short scene with him in there and then go back to it later.
Yeah, we did, because the second one is when Broyles shows up. So the first one we see him defending himself, and they're just kind of asking about Haiti and why, and he's like making a pretty good case for himself, I guess, and as far as like what happened there. But yeah, we must have cut away from there because it doesn't wrap up. It doesn't wrap up until Broyles shows up, and that's later in the episode.
Yeah, so. Because we go back to Maggie. We go back to Maggie going in on her own.
Oh, right. She goes in.
Yeah, hilarious. She goes in on her own, And they're like, "Hey, why are you here?" You know, and like, what are you doing?" And she goes, "Oh, you know, men, they get so emotional."
Yeah, yeah.
And that's when I wrote down "No morals, Maggie." Like, I was just like, "Oh, she's just brilliant." And do we then see her rolling in money on her bed?
Yeah, and that's what I thought you were gonna say when you said the weirdest moment of the series was her rolling money with, or was her grabbing Broyles and then obviously going to have sex with Broyles on that money full of bed. Like, why her and Broyles do not make a good couple. I don't think that's a good idea at all. I think she gets overexcited at that moment. Like that seems like a bad move.
Well, you know, women are so emotional.
I mean, again, this is one of those things. I think they're planting a seed for like a future storyline where they have a horrible breakup and then something goes wrong with that relationship later on, because it just it seems like a bad idea for her to get involved with that guy.
Yeah, I don't think, and I didn't even think it would turn into a relationship. I just thought this was a one-off. But then again, you know, like, she gets that sort of aroused from doing that kind of deal, and she carries on making those kind of deals, then yeah, you know, they could end up as the Bonnie and Clyde of smuggling, and that would have been interesting. Then we get the reveal to Colette. So Omar tells her about her parents. So it turns out that they were Jewish and they were carted off. And she's like, where, what happened to them? Where did they go? And he says, "Does it matter?" Excuse me? Like, Omar, you've been doing so well. But if you've just told this woman that her entire life has been a lie and that her parents were murdered by the Nazis, but in a different way than she thought, yes, it matters.
Mm-hmm.
What a ridiculous thing to say, sir.
Yeah.
And they were at Dachau. I mean, his team is good because he then gives her a photograph of her family. Like, where have they found this? Mm-hmm. And it turns out she has a brother. Mm-hmm. That she's never known about because he was younger than her, so he was more adoptable. You know, you always have this problem with sibling pairs that if one of them's a baby, they get adopted easier. So she doesn't know anything about this brother, and but Omar says, we don't know anything about him, but we think he's still alive. And I'm like, well, how do you know that? Know anything about him?
You know about him. My question is, now out of this also comes the fact that she can't continue with the courtship. Is it because she's Jewish? Is this why she can't continue?
Yes. I didn't even realize we'd had that sort of realization, or did anybody even say that out loud?
No, nobody said it out loud. She says that, and it means we can't continue with this. Like, at some point she said something like that during the conversation, and he doesn't answer her. He just moves on to something else. So, but I think the implication there, and then very clearly at the end, she's not with him anymore. Someone says, "Oh yeah," Ted tells, what's the name later on, that it's kaput.
Is he Muslim?
Maybe.
And that's, you know, but so my assumption was, it's probably because of that, because that's the only thing that was the big reveal, and then they're not courting anymore, which is really sad.
Yeah, and I mean, I get it. Like, if it was like a royal family and they have these strict rules, then that's probably one of the rules. But it still sucks, and it still, leaves Colette. She doesn't seem too broken up about it, I guess, because she just found out that she has a secret family she didn't know about. But like, she's honestly, the other is she doesn't seem too worked up about it.
Yeah, I think it was actually really good for her, because it's something that she never would have found out otherwise.
Yeah.
Only because she went through this process. So the whole Omar situation, even though she doesn't, get to be with him, it's still a good payoff for her. So I was happy about that. Can I just say, and you probably won't care, but I've talked about it a lot, the difference in hair length that these women have.
Yeah.
It's a hairpiece. So because she's got her hair tied up again when she's talking to Omar, and it's so obviously a hairpiece this time.
Yeah.
So either they went, it's the final episode and we don't care anymore, and we're not going to comb her short hair into the hairpiece, or whatever. It was just obvious this time. But I was like, oh yeah, of course. Because I mean, you wouldn't be able to tell now because I have a buzz cut, but in shows previously, I've done 60s shows, and you get a fake thing that they then comb your hair over to make a beehive. Like, it's not real hair in there, you know?
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, of course, she's just got a hairpiece.
Like, maybe it's just like, why do they keep doing it? Is it because her hair isn't that long? I don't understand why they would do that.
But in real life, she probably had, people did that. So
Yeah,
she would just have gone, I've got a very neat bob for work. And then when I go out and I want to be flashy, I've got this extra piece of hair that I can attach, and it gives me a much cuter, long,
just part of the look.
ponytail.
Yeah. Okay.
So I was really glad that that I finally understood it, that they weren't trying to lie to us. Her hair. It's just that Colette owns a hairpiece.
Yeah,
Makes
exactly.
perfect sense. Then we move on to, we go back to Dean, and this coming straight from Colette, finding out that she's got a brother, and I was like, oh, she's going to want to look for her brother. And then we get to Dean being suspended for 6 months, and I was like, how handy. I imagine he's suddenly got 6 months off work. It's almost as though he could go with Colette and look for her brother.
And let's not forget that Broyles is the one that saves him in the end by showing up and saying, this is all bullshit. Basically is what he does. Here's a letter to Wand Trip. Basically, he comes up with a magic Wand Trip letter. Another magic Wand Trip letter to say he's a good
But he says, this is from Maggie.
Oh, right.
So it's actually Maggie that saves Dean. But yeah, Broyles comes in and is like, hey, he punched me in the face, but we're good. He's got real standards. Look, he punched me in the face. So that seemed like... But again, he walks in and he's in the uniform. And they're like Captain Broyles. And I thought he wasn't a pilot anymore. And I don't know if it's like, when you're a president and then you're not a president anymore, but people still have to call you Mr. President because you will always be a president.
Yep.
Is that the same? For like a captain of Pan Am, you get to keep the uniform and they have to call you captain all the time?
I don't think it would apply to the title, maybe, but certainly not the uniform. You don't keep dressing up like a pilot even after you're not a pilot. Maybe he's not retired. Maybe he's just like, I don't know, senior status or something. I don't know. It was...
Because he when he came in, when they were going to Russia, and he walked in and was like, I'm the captain now. That was... I'm sure they said then that he was, they were like, what, how can you be? You've retired.
Yeah.
But maybe I'm misremembering that. Maybe he does still fly with them occasionally.
Yeah. Anyway. But yeah, that's, so he comes in and saves them. And so, yeah, Dean now has to be grounded. Now, and then, so they're drinking again. They're drinking in the plane. Like, they just hang out in their plane after hours and just drink. This is the same thing that the girls were doing in a previous episode where they're hanging out their plane super there. Wow, I love...
Do they not have to account for their stock of those little bottles of alcohol?
Guess not. They can just show up and drink whatever they want. The plane can just sit there empty on the tarmac, not generating revenue for the company. Because we don't know, planes don't do that anymore. Planes don't just sit there and idle and not do anything. But yeah, they're talking about how their situations and where they're at. Or is this before or after Ted gets the big news? I forgot. Have I skipped ahead again?
I think it might be after, just because... No, it's before Teddy gets the big news, because we get the scene with Ted telling his dad.
Right, that's when he pulled him out of the meeting, yes.
Yeah, and all I wrote down was brave Teddy.
Yeah, good for him.
Which he really was. And so I think then we must have had the scene with him and Dean, that he was getting drunk because of this.
Yeah.
But I didn't write anything specific down about it. But I was thinking mostly, like, you're going to get in trouble for drinking those drinks, surely.
They do whatever they want.
Yeah.
They're playing.
And then, one thing I really liked was when Maggie was going out to her deal, she told Laura she was going out to dinner. And Laura's like, why are you taking your Pan Am bag? And Maggie was like, did I say Kate? I meant Maggie. Maggie was like, oh, well, it always gets me the best table. And I was like, Laura has been so close to ruining people's lives here. Like she nearly caught Maggie just then. She's nearly caught Kate so many times. I'm just waiting for the time when everything is revealed to her, and she was like, I should have known.
She's very observant. She picks up on the details, and she notices when things aren't going. So yeah. Sure.
And so then we get is it at Grand Central Station that we get Kate meets up with Anderson to give him the film. And again, at the beginning, we're not sure whose side she's on. We don't know if she's thinking Rich.
We had cut away from our conversation. Yeah, with her and Richard, we're talking. We cut away from that. We didn't see. He had got her. He says, "You have to go in and do this on your own." Richard had told her that, so we didn't see anything after that. So then we see. So we assume, we're led to believe that she's now gone back to Anderson because she believes him, not Richard. And she believes that Richard is the mole, not Anderson. So that's what we're going into this scene. That's what we see.
Yeah, and then it turns out, like, they have a little thing, and she steps away from him, and like a guy dressed as like a train guard comes in and punches him in the face, and he gets taken down, and he goes, "I'm bringing this girl in. I'm a spy or something, or she's a spy, or whatever he's saying. She's a spy." And then she just looks at him and goes, "I hate to tell you, we're all spies." That's like, yeah.
That was good. It was a good reveal.
Yeah. So he was the double agent. And then we get the most annoying scene, which is the Ted and Amanda, and Ted goes to tell her, well, she knows that it's being broken off.
Yeah, he's already broken it off.
And yes, and she tells him about what I presume is her fake pregnancy.
I also assumed it was a fake pregnancy.
Yeah.
I said, as soon as she said that, I'm like, there's no way you're pregnant. From one time, that apparently was not good. I don't think that's going to happen.
And I mean, it can happen. That can happen. But she is not pregnant. So it's just going to be one of those situations where she baby traps him and then pretends to have a miscarriage.
Yeah. It's exactly what I thought would happen.
And so that really annoyed me because I hate that kind of plot. It's so boring. It's so boring. And then we get Kate talking to Richard. Richard's in the hospital and he wakes up and Kate is sleeping in a very awkward position in the chair. And what I did like was that she didn't just wake up and was fine. She did have to stretch her neck. She did a good neck stretch. And he wants to send her to Langley.
She's going to become a real spy.
Yeah, she's not going to be just an asset, which is what I kind of thought she was now. I thought she was a spy now, but no, she does still have to do the full training at Langley, which is good. It's nice that they have actual procedures.
Not if you're an asset. You're an asset, you can do whatever you want, and you don't have to tell them. If you're just a courier, you just make them do whatever, and you don't have to have any training.
Oh my god.
Hopefully they'll teach her how to pick a pocket properly at Langley. I'm hoping she gets the correct way now.
They're going to put on a full production of Oliver the Musical, and she's going to finally learn how to pick a pocket or two. Yeah. That's what she's going to do. That's how Langley works. I've seen The Recruit. I know that's what happens there. And then we get horrible CGI again.
Yeah, that was the airport shot.
Yeah, which that means that was probably when Ted and
they were drinking on the plane at the airport.
Were drinking, yeah. So Ted did know. So he was drinking because he was just very confused about what to do. He's like, oh, well, now I have to marry her.
Yeah, that's it. And Ted is just like kind of back and forth on this whole thing. Now he feels he has to marry her because she's pregnant. Like, there's no doubt, he doesn't doubt her at all. He just kind of takes her word for it and just kind of, it's not the kind of thing that people would have been doing a lot back then, maybe. Or maybe it was.
No, and also, like, maybe he just, for the first time in his life, maybe he doesn't want to be a prick and, like, just come out and accuse her of lying about it.
Right.
Yeah. So, bless him. And then we get the actual New Year's Eve party. Yes, because they're drinking. What do they call it? Pre-gaming? When you get drunk before you actually get to the party. So they were pre-gaming on the plane on Pan Am's dime, obviously. and the girls are at Ted's apartment because you can see the ball drop.
Yeah,
from
Ted's
the
got a really nice
balcony.
apartment. Yes, Ted's got a beautiful apartment. Of course he does. But you can see the ball drop.
It's moneyed.
Yeah.
And oh my god! And so we get the information, the full confirmation that the royal courtship is over. And I wrote down, did I miss something? Because I didn't think that had fully been addressed.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get somebody. What? How do they find out that Amanda is? Somebody says something about Amanda being gay, and they're like, no. And Maggie's like, yes, she kissed me on the mouth.
Well, no. So when Laura walked in and Ted walked in and they kissed, and someone said, when did this happen? And she's like, he's engaged to somebody else. And then Maggie said, she kissed me. And that's when it came around that Amanda kissed. So they got some explaining to do there. I don't know that anyone understands.
She kisses Ted.
Yeah.
And Ted's like, there's something I need to tell you. And she goes, tell me next year. And I'm like, there's not going to be a next year.
No, we'll never find out how she's going to react to that.
But I did like Maggie's line because she said, oh, she kissed me on the mouth. Wasn't half bad. Like, yay, Maggie. Our soon-to-be bisexual queen. Lovely.
Mm-hmm.
And then they go... and then Laura doesn't know. It ends with Laura not knowing and Dean confirming that he's going to look for Colette's brother with her.
And Dean and Colette,
yes,
they kiss at the stroke of midnight. They're looking at each other and they share a kiss, kind of like a little safe. It wasn't like a full tongue or anything like that, but you kind of get the sense that there could be rebuilding there. Something could be going on there again.
Dan, this was the 60s. People didn't kiss with tongue in the 60s.
Sorry, I don't know. They kissed.
This was because you don't see it on film, so I don't believe it ever happened.
Well, I just think that they were trying to tease that out and say, there'll be something going on here with these two. They're not over yet. That's what they're saying with
yeah.
Right?
And I like that Maggie sort of turned to hug them and was like, oh no!
Maggie's the only one
happening again. Great. But my favourite thing about that is I have always heard about this ball dropping. And I have never seen this ball dropping.
Oh, really?
It's very slow.
Well, it takes a full minute to drop.
And I did not know that. I just thought it went like 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then dropped a ball somewhere. But so it just very slowly for a whole minute.
Yeah, it might actually be 30 seconds. I'm not quite sure. But you count. You go 10, 9, 8, and it's going down as a little, not like that, but it goes down. And yeah, I've been watching it my whole life, Cara. Every year.
It's so funny though, because it's always been like, I've always thought it's such a big deal, and it is a big
really
deal.
Drop it's just lower. The ball lowers. It does not drop.
No, I had very different ideas about what that was going to look like.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the end of it.
Yeah, nice final shot of all of them looking at the ball, and
and everyone looked really happy except Christine Ritchie, who was like, they caught her really badly.
Dean looked a little weird in that moment. At the very end there, maybe not in that final shot, but like they got a shot of Dean. I think maybe he's drunk or something. I don't know. He looked like he was like something was going on with him, that he was uncomfortable for a moment. I don't know.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. So it would have been nice to get more, Yeah.
Sorry, I got a blue puzzle here.
Oh, I get that now. And so then I started doing my research into, why it might have finished and, who knew what, when, and blah, blah, blah. And Margot Robbie, at some point did an interview with someone saying that they changed writers after the 5th episode.
Oh, interesting.
So, and then they were going for more of a Desperate Housewives thing. So they started off trying to be Mad Men, and then they didn't get the numbers that they wanted. So they switched to try and become more soapy, and Margot Robbie was like, and then we were all like, this isn't the show that we were meant to be making. And I was trying to think, because it definitely did become more about relationships and stuff, you know. But I don't remember there being like an obvious tonal shift after number 5, but it definitely did get, you know, more about. But those shows always seem to, you know, that's kind of what I expected it to do. You
That was
establish the
Ginny in?
people.
Was Ginny a character in episode 5, or is that when that happened? It was
Well,
7.
oh yeah, when did she come into it? I don't remember. Wait, let me have a look. I've got all my notes here. So what's number 5 was One Coin in a Fountain. That's when we met Nico. Oh, and it's the first one we met Ginny in.
Yeah. So there you go. That's two storylines that kind of continued for a few episodes.
Yeah, and so she said after episode 5 it changed. And so then I went and looked at the ratings. The weekly ratings, and they started at 11 million. Then they went down to sort of 7.5, then 6.5, then top 5 million, 5.5, 5.5, bottom 5, up a little bit, 5.5 again, and then down to 4.5, 4, 3.5, 3.5. Then the day that the Grammys was on, it was like 2.5, and then back up to 3.5 again. So that change didn't do them any good.
No, not at all. Right.
So they were obviously dropping and dropping and dropping.
I think it was also coming at a time when streaming was taking over. This is like, 2011. This is when Netflix is starting to become more and more popular. And I think networks are already starting to see a drop off in viewership. Like 3.5 million isn't that bad these days. People wouldn't see 3.5 million. Right. But back then it was like, if you're not getting 10, 20 million viewers, then it's not worth it. So they wouldn't put the money into it. So I think that's part of what's changed as well. And people were gravitating away from cable into streaming, canceling their cable, not watching ABC. This is way before Disney Plus was around, right? So this is part of the time that this show came out, and it was just kind of a victim of its circumstance, I think.
Yeah, and these were apparently including DVRs. So
yeah, they always do that. They can take.
So because there wasn't a catch up with it later, like you say, like on Disney Plus or Hulu. Because I'm thinking, 911 gets like 5.5, I think, million, and it's considered a pretty big show, So yeah, but the other thing I found was the Reddit for Pan Am, and that's where I ended up because I was trying to find anybody talking about, like, did they know it was ending, and so did they write this as a full-on finale? And one of the things I found on Reddit was someone who said, I liked this show. I would have been okay without the spy subplot. And then someone replied, exactly, and you'll like this because it's something that we've talked about before, that wasn't jumping the shark, but it did seem excessive. It was the main plot.
That's all it was about. Like, I think that's what the show was supposed to be. Initially, it was going to be about her being a spy, right? That's what got changed in episode 5. Anyway.
Yeah, so they're like, it wasn't. No, it can't be jumping the shark because it happened in episode 1 and it continued all the way through. You can't call that jumping the shark.
Yeah. And I can't get that term, so let's not get into that.
Yes, I know that you do because we've discussed that before. That's why I wrote it. I was like, oh, I've got to tell Dan about this. He'll love it. But yeah, I just thought that was such a funny thing of being like, that the main plot, I didn't really care for it, but the rest of the show I really enjoyed.
Yeah. I like the part where they were in the plane. It was good.
I liked every bit where Colette Valois was on the screen.
Yeah, I mean, I know you like Colette. I think my favorite character is probably Ted. I think he's hilarious. I liked Laura, though. I thought Margot Robbie is really, really good. And she stands out from the rest of the cast. And I think overall it's a good show. I'm glad I watched it. Thank you for watching it with me. I think it was a fun time. And we'll never know. I think, okay, so let's talk about what do you think they went on to do after this ended? Well,
I mean, I'm annoyed by where they ended Laura's storyline because my idea was that she was gonna, like, I said to you, I think she'll become a war reporter. And now I don't think she will, but I think it would have been really fun if she'd had the time to grow and, like, not be reliant on a man and not, and just develop in a really different way. and take her photography somewhere that she never would have thought it would go, and be brave. I just wanted her to get the opportunity to be brave. So that's what I would have liked for Laura, is something like that.
Yeah. I think, I mean, they could have done that if they'd gone a few more seasons. They could have, like, she could have dated Ted, and that could have been fine. And then they would have broken up, and she could have gone up and done that. But now it's not there. Now you're like, oh, now she's going to be with Ted, and who knows what's going to happen. So,
yeah, but is she? Because now he is going to marry Amanda, and then she's not going to be with him, and maybe that forces her to become a war.
We know that Amanda's lying. We know Amanda's lying about the baby, so that's like going to be, that would have been like season 2, episode 1. We would find out that Amanda's lying about the baby. That's the first thing we get to that, right?
Absolutely.
So, anyway,
I don't know. I cannot imagine what would happen to Maggie. Like, I just imagine that she's going to end up in jail.
Or politics. I thought she might be interested in running for Congress or something like that. If you seemed like that world, she just didn't like the side she was on, right? She didn't like the Republicans.
I just think that's such a brilliant, like, I think she could go to jail, and then you went, or politics. Like, those are the two sides of the same coin. You're either going to be a criminal, or you're going to be a politician.
Right, that's exactly right. Yeah.
And I think Maggie is definitely one of those people. Yeah, she is a criminal now. But yeah, it would have been great to see her, like, try and become a politician. That would have been really interesting. Kate is gonna go to Langley, but are you allowed to tell people when you're going to Langley? Because, like, what's Laura gonna think? I have no idea how that works.
Oh no, I think you would. Like, if you want to say I'm joining the CIA, you don't have to be tell everyone you're a spy. You can work at the CIA and just be a regular person, I think. I don't know.
Okay.
I think that she would probably tell them, and I think what would happen there is that she would go off to Langley, then get trained, and then come back and be a Pan Am stewardess again, and be a real spy as a stewardess. Still be
interesting
as a cover, because it's still a good cover. I mean, that's still a good excuse for her to travel around and do stuff. So I think that's, if the show had continued, that's where they would have done with her. She would have come back season 2, trained up and ready to go for her new missions, which would have been the main story of the show.
Yes, yeah. That very famous spy subplot. And then, so that would have been really good if they trained her during the off season, and then she, like, comes and says that she, like, tested out, or, you know, she failed, and she's back as a stewardess, but she didn't. And then Colette, I don't know what they would have done with Colette.
No, I mean, they could.
Would we have followed them searching for her brother? It feels like we might have done, because her and Dean were important parts of the show. But, and again, they might have done one of those really annoying things where season 2 starts 6 months later.
Right. And they've found the brother or something, or I don't know, or they're just about to find him. They could do that where they're just about to find him somewhere, and then they see where that goes. But I think we are meant to believe that Dean and Colette do end up back together. After all the Omar business, which just served to give her family history, and that's it.
Yeah, and then Ted, he will just have trauma with, you know, just like whatever's going on with this relationship. But I hope that he finally gets his pilot wings. Oh yeah, I guess he'll eventually become a pilot. That's true. Yeah. I was gonna say he's gonna end up in a bar somewhere just drinking his sorrows away. I don't think Ted's gonna end up. Yeah. He's not gonna find. I don't think he's gonna end up with Laura. I think Laura's gonna leave him behind and go off and do great things, and Ted's gonna be like, "Oh, Laura." He's gonna be missing her. Yeah. Laura's winning Pulitzer prizes, and Ted is like just drinking in a bar. I think that's probably about right. Yeah. Yeah. So I think like Laura and Maggie are the most interesting in terms of like at the end of season 1 where we think they might end up. Mm-hmm. Like not knowing, but they're the most fun to think about where they might end up. The others, Kate, we kind of know, but the others are sort of like just ephemeral, you know. Yeah, and I think that was deliberate. I think they did leave it at this point, hoping that either they would get renewed or that another network or streaming service would pick it up and run with it. I think that if they had like kind of stayed with the vision of the show from the beginning, they probably would have been better. The episodes would have been better, and they maybe would have built a better audience. But
they're always wanting to change things up. They're always like in network TV. They're always unsure. They're going by the ratings. They like the ratings aren't good. They panic and they have to change something. So that's kind of what happened here, I think.
Yes. And I'm trying to see the thing about. Oh yeah, so it was episode 8, well, Unscheduled Departure, when we had the Haiti episode.
Mm-hmm.
And it seemed like after that, Colette's character just became about relationships.
Right.
She was only used as a plot point for Dean. And then her plot point was this Omar situation, which really was still a plot point for Dean. Yeah. So she became very relegated, which I think was a real waste, because that bit of her singing the German national anthem was one of the highlights of the series. And that was before they changed writers and became more schmaltzy and whatever. Yeah. But, and I think that was a real pity that they did not. She was a ballsy woman and they just sort of turned her into,
yeah,
you know,
unfortunate.
And yes, I still love her, but it's a very physical thing. I'm not lying to anyone about that. She is just an incredibly beautiful woman. But yeah, like when you look at it, because when you look at the cast to begin with, you're like, oh, this is going to be Christina Ricci's show. And it wasn't. So that was really interesting.
No. Yeah, because she was the big star in that show.
Who came out of it? Margot Robbie is just extraordinary. She's just luminescent. Love her.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really glad that she's had the career that she has, you know, because now Laura's so sweet and so, she's just great, Laura. If I didn't fancy Colette as much as I do, I would definitely, Laura would be my favourite. I'm very shallow. Yeah, but I'm really pleased we watched that. Except I am also really sad that we watched that, because now we don't get to watch any more of it.
Well, now it's done. Now it's back to 911, and I'm looking forward to that and having fun watching that. So yeah, it's good.
Yep. So the first, we have had an idea of what's happening, and very excitingly, I think the episode the first episode of 8B has an actual fire in it.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, amazing stuff. It never happens. So we're getting an actual fire, and it's at like an animal rescue place or something. And now a lot of people are talking about we're all desperate for Buck to end up with a dog. You know, like Eddie's moving away, and Buck needs someone, so he should get a dog. And the actor who plays him has 2 dogs. And he is just absolutely bonkers about them, and they're very well trained, and you know, he's just really into his dogs, and they're with him on set and stuff. Oh. So we're like, give Buck a dog and make it one of his dogs. So we're hoping that this animal rescue situation leads to Buck adopting a dog. And then we get the start of the serial killer situation, which I think is going to be like a 2-episode arc over the beginning of the new half of the season.
Cool.
And whether or not Maggie gets kidnapped, we don't know. Maybe. Because Maddie.
Yeah, switch back. The other show.
Jennifer Love Hewitt. We don't know Jennifer Love Hewitt, because they have that terrible bit in the promo for it. They've got that bit where Athena is saying, they took, and then it cuts, and you don't see her say it, but you hear her say, Maddie. And it's so, someone pointed out, I don't know if you've seen the John Mulaney special where he's talking about like really bad dubbing. and it sounds like that. It's like they've gone, oh, they took Maddie. It's got, like, what? It sounds really bad. So they're either double bluffing us and Maddie does get kidnapped, or we've all figured it out far too early.
Okay. Well, we'll have to wait and see.
So yeah, so that'll be out on Thursday night. So I will watch that on Friday. And tonight is the Oscars.
Okay.
Which I hadn't realized. I used to be very obsessed with the Oscars. And these days I don't watch it anymore because I always think they're going to ruin the films, because I've never seen any of the films by the time the Oscars come out now. So I
don't make any life decisions based on the Oscars, and I'm going to continue. So I'm okay with not watching it. But I do have to get going though. We're running a bit long though, and I got to get going. So thank you very much. We're going to wrap it up. I will see
you next week for 911
All right.
Stories. Bye.